Give us some sound. All righty, good afternoon, and welcome to Not Done Yet. This is your host, Tom Sellers, with my co-host, Robbie Robinson. Robbie, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing fantastic as usual. I am fired up and extremely agitated at cancer. I'm being nice to what I normally say, so it depends on our guest. I'm going to answer that. So
Right.
doing well.
Well, good. We got a few people we want to say hi to real quick. Understand Gary is at CTCA today. Yep. He's having some shoulder surgery here pretty soon, so we wish him well on that. Our friend Lisa Welch is doing better and has just gone back to work, so good for her.
Good.
Deb Reynolds has just joined us. Deb, how are you?
Hi, Deb.
Good to see you.
Just everybody out there, my family and friends. Thrilled to have all of them in my life. And one more day. You know, I wake up every day and I reach over and I'm going, yep, she's still there. Yep, she's still warm. It's a good day. So
very nice. Very nice. So we have Marie with us today, who heads up an incredibly good organization. Phil Nocerino has joined us as well.
Hi,
Phil, how are you, sir? So Robbie, let's get us started here.
Yes,
please.
I'd like to introduce you to our guest today, Marie Jarrell. Marie is a breast cancer survivor, and I met Marie probably over 10 years ago, about when we were both part of an organization called Team in Training, which is run through the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It's a charity endurance training program. If you do fundraisers for them, they'll coach you and teach you and get you to events that are like half marathons, triathlons, hikes, all different like that. So it's not like you're going to go out and do a 5K or something with these folks. They're going to put you to the test. You're going to learn some few things that you didn't know about yourself, that you were capable of. But that's where Marie and I first met. She was one of the coaches and a runner, and I was a walker. And so that's where we first met. Marie, in 2014, I believe it was.
Yes.
Was diagnosed with breast cancer. And a couple of years after that, started an organization, a charity organization called the Sunbow Foundation. And their goal is to grant acts of kindness to people who are in need. It doesn't have to be just somebody who's fought cancer. It can be any type of a need, whether it's health, finance, just all different types of things. And so we're going to talk to her about that. Before we do, we like to share with people about what it was like for yourself personally to go through, find out. I mean, here you are, a long-distance runner, a coach, doing everything you can to be healthy and have a good quality of lifestyle, and all of a sudden you find out you've got breast cancer.
Yeah, sure. Well, for me in particular, I had a clean mammogram in January of that year. So, then you think you've got the all clear and you're good to go. So I had the clean mammogram, and then I thought I felt a lump. So I went into the doctor right away, and she did some things, and she's like, it doesn't look like cancer. I don't think it's anything. She's like, she gave me some things to watch over the next month with hormones and things like that. She's like, but I think it's all good. And I watched that, and it was all good still. So I'm like, okay, Then one morning, it was actually the middle of the night, I woke up with unbelievable pain in my breast. And I remember that day very, very well, as we do. We remember all the moments. But the weird thing about it was, I went to work that day, and I called the doctor, and she said, okay, we're not going to mess around. Let's go ahead and get you into some further testing. And the pain went away right after I called and never came back. So it was just really weird. And the other thing is, normally there is no pain in breast cancer.
I was going to say, that's not a symptom.
Unless it's like in your chest wall or something. Yeah, it's not a symptom. So nobody understands why I had the pain. I got some angels looking over me or whatever. So I had the pain just long enough to make the phone call, and then it led to the next.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did it go? Did it go fairly quickly, or did it kind of drag on? I mean, it always feels like it drags on when you suspect it or find out it's there and still haven't quite done anything yet.
Yeah. So the finding out went relatively quickly. The finding out went, I went in for an ultrasound, and I think they knew that moment what it was. They don't tell you that.
Right.
But they took me aside. They're like, you're going to need a biopsy. And it was all pretty serious. So
and telling me
Yeah,
this.
so I had the biopsy, and ironically, I was down in Florida at a triathlon at St. Anthony's with my team and training friends when I was expecting the call.
Oh, no kidding.
So I had been cheering them on over the weekend. The try was Sunday. On Monday, I was expecting the call, and that's when I got the call that I had cancer. So that went pretty quick. But to your point, the treatment stuff was a little slower than I expected. I fully thought when I found out on a Monday that I was going to have a bilateral mastectomy and chemo by Friday. That's how I thought it was going to go. It wasn't that fast at all. When I got home, I went to the doctor on Tuesday, but it was actually 3 weeks before I could get into the breast surgeon that was recommended. And of course, I was freaking out about that, but I called other breast surgeons, and they were out too, and they were all at a breast cancer conference. And I was like, well, I don't think I want the one that's not at the conference.
Good point.
Yeah, but I was assured as I was freaking out, I was assured that if my cancer was an emergency of some sort, somebody would have gotten me in right away. And they were like, people calmed me down and said, if they're telling you you can wait, you can wait.
Yeah.
And so then it was 3 weeks.
It's easy to be told that. It's very hard to sit there knowing it's in you.
Yeah.
And that's
going like don't take off at 5 or quit on the weekends or
And I got diagnosed in late April, and my mastectomy was not till July 2nd. So it was a while before the actual treatment came through.
The mind just goes crazy thinking all different scenarios and everything too, don't it?
Yeah. Right. Well, one thing that was super helpful for me is I had a friend, you kind of get this, me being involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I had a very strong cancer network, if you will.
Yep.
And someone suggested to me cancer navigation through Livestrong. And I was like, wait, that is what I need. And through them.
Is that a program through Lance Armstrong's organization?
So it's through Livestrong. And it's different than a cancer navigator at the hospital who's maybe guiding you through your treatments. This was an oncology nurse who I uploaded my documents to, and it was really the first oncology professional that I spoke to while I was waiting, right? But that person was there for me 24/7 to answer.
Well, that's nice.
It was life-changing. So she really was able to calm me down during that waiting period. It really was life-changing.
So they connect you with somebody has experience either as a patient or as a doctor doing that particular type of.
It's actually their job. Yeah. They connect you to a different cancer organization. And that was key for me.
That's something everybody should take into consideration and look into, no matter where you're going. Check that out through the Armstrong program. Just put Lance Armstrong's program in the computer and it'll tell you. And check out that navigator, oncologist navigator.
Cancer navigation. And they still have it. I just recommended it to someone a couple weeks ago.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
Good thing to know.
It is, because I recall, and I'm sure I'm no different, from finding out to actually doing something about it. Mine took actually longer than yours because they had to take out teeth and they had to wait for the teeth to heal and all these things. And next thing I know, I'm like, by the time you guys prep me, there's not going to be any reason to go do anything. Because you hear it, you just say, all right, let's get it out. Let's quit playing with it.
The thing that was nice about this too is that, you always leave the doctor's office and then you're like, oh, I forgot to ask that. And I could just shoot her an email and ask that question. So it was great.
So don't forget, go to Armstrong's organization and look up cancer navigation. Let's see here. You've been pretty busy. Did you quit work during all of that, or did you stay working?
I was super, super, super lucky in my work situation at the time. I'm a therapist by trade. At that time, I was working part-time in one company doing education stuff, at least for the first part of my treatment. And the other part of my job was I did the company I still work for now, do injury prevention on site. Costco is a big client of ours. So I went to several Costco stores. I worked at the Fairmont Hotel in Chicago. And that job allowed me a lot of flexibility, which was key because if I was a physical therapist, the fatigue and if I had to do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that would have been really challenging.
Was the fatigue heavy for you?
Yeah, big time.
I don't know why it is, even if you don't do treatment, because you said we'll discuss that in a few minutes.
So I took I think 2 weeks off after my mastectomy. So I had a mastectomy and A week later, I went actually and coached my friends
Did you
with my
really?
drains under my shirt. I still have that picture. I'm super proud of that. That was a big, you know,
Yeah, to get out
that was
and
a
do
big
that.
middle finger to cancer.
Well, you know, to even get out and get away from the house from is scary sometimes when you know you got all this going on with your body and you got bags hanging everywhere. And you know, a lot of times you don't want to get away from home base too much.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for doing that.
So I just took a couple of weeks off, and I was lucky too. My boyfriend worked in IT. You know, it takes a village, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he worked in IT and could work remotely from home. And so his boss let him work remotely. So he actually drove me to work.
Oh.
And he would sit and work then while I was working, and then he could drive me home. I mean, a very unusual, blessed situation. It was very much a blessing that I could stay working really through my whole.
You had a lot of helping hands in that.
Lots of
whole
helping
thing,
hands.
didn't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That humbles you, don't it?
Oh,
I know it did me when I realized that how badly I always wanted to do for others, but going through that made me realize how badly I need people in my life also.
Oh yeah.
You know, for me. And
I came out, I call it coming out of the cancer closet. I came out of the cancer closet right away, like the next day after my diagnosis, because having been involved with team and training maybe 12, 13 years at that point, and knowing so many people who'd been through cancer, I knew that I needed that level of support that I gave so many people and that we all had given people. And they did not disappoint, but I knew that I knew my personality, and I knew that I needed that. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with knowing what your strong points are. She works, Marie works for Briotics. There we go.
Briotics Health.
Briotics Health, and that's what she does. She goes to companies and teaches them how to be safe in work to keep from getting injured. So, you're still in the health industry, and you know, was that kind of weird being in that industry? And like I said, doing what you did, and then finding out that I've got cancer. Did you have those thoughts of, well, what the world did I do wrong? I'm trying to do everything right. What did I do? Or did you just go ahead and say, okay, this is the way it is. Let's deal with it.
Yeah, I never had a why me. I maybe that comes from having so much experience, both in healthcare and with so many people who've had cancer. I never had that. I was just like, okay, it is what it is. Let's go. Yeah.
That's the best way to look at it, because eventually that's how you got to deal with it anyway.
Right.
No matter what happened in the past, doesn't matter anymore.
Doesn't matter.
You got to deal from here on forward.
That's right.
We want to say hi to a couple of people who have joined us. Gary joined us. Gary, good to see you. Again, our best wishes. Shoulder surgery. Saw Gary the other day. That is a messy looking shoulder. That has gotta hurt.
Yeah. And we all, you know, when you're going through all this stuff like you have, and he's been doing it for years too.
Yep.
You hate to go to the doctor again. So you kind of put things off sometimes that, you know, that's physical like that, because, you know, you hate being at another doctor for something again. I mean, sometimes you just got to go ahead and do it. So good fortune to you, Gary, on this. You're going to be okay, bud.
Yep. And Alan has joined us, as well as Ted. Good to see you both, guys. Thanks for stopping by.
Ted. So, you said you did do chemo?
I did do chemo.
You had a radical mass mastectomy, and then
I had a mastectomy. I could have had my tumor was small enough, but if you don't know a lot about breast cancer, there's a million different kinds, right? So people think stage 1 is good and stage 4 is, progressed, but there's a lot of nuances to it in between. So my particular tumor was small, so it was grade 3, so it was aggressive. So the pathology right at the beginning, they had told me that I was very likely I would need chemo. They're like, we won't know for sure until we do the final testing, but it's very, very likely. So I could have had a lumpectomy with radiation or a mastectomy, and I chose a mastectomy. I had to have radiation anyway, but I'm like, if I have to have chemo and I don't have to have 2, then that's what I'm going to choose. So that's what I chose. And I did end up needing chemo.
How long did you have to do the chemo?
I had 6 cycles of chemo. It's like 18 weeks. So it was 6 cycles, 1 every 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's about what mine was. How long did your chemo? Mine was like hours.
It was a few hours. Yeah, probably like maybe 3 or 4 hours.
I think that's one of the parts I hated the most was being forced to sit there for 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah, I always
had I'm kind of hyper to begin with.
I always had chemo buddies. So, and a lot of times it was people that I didn't have a chance to sit and talk with for 3 hours, so it was kind of nice.
If you want to tell us where you went for that. We're not associated with any particular place. Tom and I went to the same place, but we let folks share where they went and where they were successful. So
sure, absolutely. Well, so my treatment was primarily through Christ Hospital. I ended up being referred to Dr. Barbara Kruger as a surgeon, who absolutely was amazing, and was pleasantly surprised to find out when I went for my first appointment with Dr. Kruger that they actually had a whole program. And in one day, I met with the Dr. Kruger. I met with an oncologist. I met with a radiologist. I met with the genetic counselor. I met with the navigator, all in one morning.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
they understand a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
That's
And
my
so-
old neighborhood.
Yeah.
95th and Custer is where that hospital
Well, and then
is.
they told me, like, I
Yeah.
knew that day, they're like, well, you need this, you might not need that. I had genetic testing that day. And then I had my chemo at Southland Oncology, but I did go for a second opinion with Dr. Melody Cobley at Rush, who's also amazing. And I did go with her recommendation for chemo. She actually, she was like, there's a science and there's an art.
Yeah.
And she's a major researcher. She's very well known in the breast cancer world. And, you know, she said on paper, the recommendation that you got is correct. But I'm telling you, from what I've seen, your cancer's aggressive more cycles. So that's what I had.
Yeah.
I didn't get treated there. I didn't get treated there because it was so far.
Right.
So I got treated at Southland Oncology, but I went with her recommendation. And now she actually is my oncologist.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. You have to go where you feel comfortable with. So please, if you're just going through a diagnosis, your doctor's going to send you to the hospital that their office does business with. They're going to send you to specialists they do business with. Make sure that you're comfortable with the decisions. It's our lives, so we do have a big say in
Absolutely.
this.
That's the
Just
biggest thing.
like Marie did. She took advice from one doctor, used their means of treatment, but went with another doctor to have it applied and take care of her. So, you know, you kind of take all that together, and we're the boss. So make sure it's someone that you're comfortable with. So that's the most important thing, I think, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, gosh, out of everything, and when I try to help people, I say, whatever decision you decide is right for you.
Exactly.
You know, but you need to be comfortable with it. And I'm such a research knowledge person. I needed to really understand, and then that's what made me 100% comfortable. And my surgeon actually made me defend my decision to get a mastectomy. She said, I want you to come in because, of course, lumpectomy is considered more conservative, right?
Yeah.
And she said, so why did you decide this? Because so many people just want to radically have, you know, bilateral mastectomies.
Sure.
Everyone wants it all because cancer
Exactly.
forever. And she wanted to make sure I wasn't just, you know, just being over the
Rushing
top.
into it, or
Yeah. And I said, this, and this. And she goes, okay, you're good, you know, because I had thought it through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is hard because we get this sense of urgency once we're told.
Oh yeah, you want to
And,
have it
you know,
every treatment that's out there.
Yeah, and everybody that knows everybody knows this is telling us somewhere to go, something to
Oh,
take,
yeah.
and somebody to see. And how do you know who's right or wrong?
Yeah.
And you want to feel like you made the right decision the first time, and so
Yeah.
it's hard. And none of us, I've yet to meet anybody that said, "Yeah, I sat down and said, if I ever get cancer, this is what I'm going to do." We
Right.
all went, "What? I have what? I got to
Exactly.
do what?" And like Tom said, he found out once he went on there and started looking at, he had about 4 hours to live.
Right.
Oh yeah,
By the time
everybody-
he
we all
got
do
through
that, right?
with all the stuff he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
looking at.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can overwhelm yourself sometimes too.
Yeah, Dr. Google's not the best. Yeah.
Dr. Google, I like that's a good one.
Yeah, Dr. Google will take you around the world quickly and
Yeah.
give you 47 opinions. And,
Yeah.
and yes, I've said that many times. By the time I had a couple hours in that, I'm like, yeah, I got a few hours and it's all over for me.
Yeah, yeah.
You said the fatigue was kind of rough during the treatment.
Yeah. So the fatigue was cumulative. You know, at the beginning, I called it my sick days. You know, you kind of get with each cycle, you sort of get used to the routine. Like,
And you
okay,
get-
this is how long it's going to take me. I never was sick. I called it my sick days. And it was really just when that moment came when I was like, oh, now I'm a little oogie. Now I'm not feeling great. Now I'm getting tired. And then after the first treatment, 24 hours later, a light switch went off and I felt completely normal. And I didn't really expect that, right? Like I thought once I started chemo, I was not going to feel great like the whole time.
First round's not usually too bad. You might have a little reaction at
24
first,
hours
but
later, I was fine. And then that was and by cycles 5 and 6, my fatigue was indescribable. I try to describe it to people. I mean, unless you've been through it, when you're just like, it was
felt like lead.
Oh,
feels like somebody turned the gravity knob up.
I mean, you just would
pulled.
be like, you would just be debating, like, do I really? And I had a dog, you know, that I was like, can you please just wait to go?
Do you really have to go to the bathroom right now?
I can't get out of this bed. And so that was, so the fatigue got really bad. And then, long story short, then I kind of got a little bit better after treatment. And then I had subsequent problems with fatigue later. But
what was that from?
So I'm not, well, you know, if you ask me, my immune system was kind of trashed from the chemo. I was feeling better after after being off treatment, the symptoms were subsiding. And then probably about maybe 6-8 months later, I saw some other symptoms. I got an arthritis in my hands and my feet, and I got colitis. Nobody, to be honest, nobody was really willing to specifically blame it on chemo.
It took years for them to recognize that neuropathy was caused by chemo.
But I was like, nah. So I kind of messed around with that for a few years. Having some subsequent systems, I think I'm good. I'm much better now, but yeah, there was some late effects, I guess is the best way to say it, late effects. And I think that that's maybe another important thing to know. And it's a little tricky part of cancer recovery, right? Because while you're going through it, you got a million cheerleaders and yay, rah, rah, and everybody's there for you. And they're probably still there for you afterwards. But there's an assumption that now you're fine.
Right.
There's an assumption that your cancer's over. You should be back to quote unquote normal. And it's not always the case.
You look great.
Yeah. So you kind of have to cut your own self that slack, right? And know that this was no joke, and that, you know, that your body might take a while to actually recover.
Otherwise that guilt can kind of set in of, well, what am I doing wrong?
Lazy. I was like, I'm lazy.
You start beating up on yourself, like you said.
I was like, wait a minute, I used to do this and I used to do that, and I'm not back to that. And, you know, there's a lot of.
And the desire, it takes harder to get that desire to go out and want to do something again kicked in. And, you know, it's a struggle for people who are going. And like you said, we look good to people, but they don't see the inside and how.
And you're not talking about it so much anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't want to talk about it necessarily. You're kind of past it, but the reality is still there.
We all want life to get on.
With
it. And for all those around us, it does. But sometimes for that patient, it's something they have to deal with the rest of their life to one degree or another. I mean, almost every cancer patient I've ever met or survivor has had some lingering effects from that, whether it was just getting sick all the time, getting colds much easier than they used to, or I run out of energy like I used to. You know, but I get 6 good hours a day, and then I start dragging after that. You know, and it's rough to get it going in the morning, and it's rough to keep it all from crashing down at night. It's hard to. You just have to learn to not beat yourself up and pace yourself. It's like we did in the marathons. You had to learn to pace yourself.
Absolutely. You know, they always say, you know, marathon's an analogy for life, you know, and it's definitely an analogy for cancer too. You know, like, I'd be like, I'm at mile 21. I'm at mile, I'm getting close to the finish line.
Like, mile 21, are you crazy?
That's when I'm on my second gallon of gas. You want to say hi to Tammy Powell? Tammy, how are you?
Hi, Tammy.
Enjoy seeing that smile on Facebook in the morning. You know, and kind of going back to what you said, there's the other side of the coin, and I know you've probably experienced it the same as I did. If we've been running 100 miles for most of our life before cancer, now we go through, and like you said, our friends look at it as like, yeah, we're done. But a certain amount of us look at it the same way. It's like, yeah, I'm done. Let's go.
Yeah.
I did it to myself. I'm like, all right, I'm done. Everything's good.
How'd that go?
I crashed and burned.
Yeah. I tell my wife it's like a horse at the gate. When the gate opens, the horse got to run because you don't know when the gate's going to shut again.
Yeah, I had to go to the doctor.
Push myself. A
few weeks later, and I'm like, I don't understand this. You know, everything's good. I got no. You know, they said no cancer. I got work. She's like, you know, you just went through a hell of a beating. You understand that, right? You're not healed yet. You might want to slow down a little bit.
You're not healed. Good way to put it.
Yeah.
You're not healed.
You know, and that's kind of a tough line for us to walk. You know, again, if we we went into this and we had a particular lifestyle.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden, for me, it took the better part of a year to go through my treatment. And then it's like, all right, that's enough time. I've been sitting on the bench long enough.
Want to be done?
Yeah.
I'm done. Let's go back to work.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the body says, yeah, not yet.
Well, it's like our friend Tammy on here. Last I heard, it was 60-something treatments that she just finished up.
Yep. Talk
Rounds
about
of
a
chemo.
warrior. Talk about a warrior.
That's a cancer slayer extraordinaire there.
Exactly.
Sure.
You bet.
Tammy, I hope you realize how much you inspire the rest of us. So by seeing your smiling face every day and gets up and says, well, round 64 today. And I'm like,
and on the rare occasion where she's posting that it's not a particularly good day,
yeah,
but she's smiling when she's saying
yes,
that is a warrior.
Yeah, it sure is. So it took you a couple of years to kind of start feeling somewhat, like you said, whatever normal is supposed to be to us.
Almost 5. I'm coming up 6, about 4. Yeah.
What struck you to start doing Sunbow Foundation?
Through organically. My father passed away when back in 1984, and then my mom passed away in like 99. So I just, in the back of my mind, I wanted to do something to honor them. I didn't really have a specific idea, just something, right? Like I just want to do something. And I thought I would do it right after my mom having one thing led to another. Things happen for a reason, and things happen when they're supposed to.
That's right.
So I wasn't able to do it at first, and so I joined this little organization called Team in Training because I just wanted to do something for charity and so on. So I'm still involved with them, but I was very, very heavily involved with them for most of this time, and then it just sort of grew. I never even came up with the idea per se. It just sort of happened by what I was doing. So number one, as you know, Robbie, you get the best friends in the world out of Team in Training. Yeah. And so, and not only are they the best friends, but they're very altruistic and giving.
Yes.
So now I have this network of my best friends that are all givers, right? It just was. And so, for my 50th birthday, I decided I was going to do acts of kindness. I just was going to do that. And the word was in the back of my mind for a while. So a sunbow, most people think of as rainbows are actually sunbows. So a rainbow is the spectrum of color that comes out while it's raining. A sunbow is the spectrum of color that comes out when the rain ends.
Oh, I didn't know the difference in that. That's cool.
And I found that word at a very dark time in my life, not long after my mom died, and a million other things were going on too. And so I held on to that word as a word of hope for myself, that someday it would be my sunbow time. Like someday the rain is going to end, the sun is going to come out, the storm is going to be over. And it was a word of hope. So the word was over here. The idea was over here. So I started to do acts of kindness. And then what happened, so I was at Costco at work one day, and one of the employees there was like, hey, do you know anybody? Do you know of a charity that does prom dresses? My daughter got invited to prom, but she can't afford a dress. I said, well, I know there are charities. Like this is before there was a foundation. Charities that do that. But you know what? I have like amazing friends. Somebody's got to have a
dress.
So I walked away. I posted on Facebook. Within 10 minutes, these amazing friends and people that I just told you about donated everything. I mean, they donated money to get her hair done. They donated shoes. They donated everything within minutes. Wow. And then one friend in particular, Alyssa, she had a bunch of prom dresses. She's like, well, let me have her try these all on. None of them fit. And so she took her out and bought a new prom dress. So if you go to the Facebook page that we'll talk about later, there's a picture of this young lady who went to prom. I know she's in the Navy now, and she still talks to her mom about that. She still talks about the kindness of strangers and how she can't believe that someone did that for her. And now she's serving us and serving our country. Anyway, that was before it was an official foundation, but it was sort of sparked the idea. It really sparked the idea. And it also showed, I think one of the reasons I was waiting to do a foundation is I thought you had to do something ginormous, right? Like if you don't have $10,000 to give someone, what difference can you make? this was huge. This was a huge difference, and it was just what she needed.
Yeah.
It was huge to her. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of what started it. And then it just sort of gelled from there. It just sort of evolved organically.
Yeah. It's not easy it's not easy to do what you did to begin with, but to actually organize that and turn it into a 501c3 charity is a process. You know, Scott Sachs, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had Scott on here one time because he's a big advocate for that. And he has a lot of information on, because a lot of people go through it, like you said, and go, well, I want to do something now. I want to do something. And they want to start an organization or a charity and have no idea what's all involved in that. Was that a difficult process for you to get to that point where it became?
So
how'd that process go?
So I went through an attorney. I didn't know enough about it. And one of the things that was delaying me for so long was that I didn't have the money to spend. I thought,
costs money to run a charity, doesn't it?
Well, but not as much as it would have been 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's why I say when everything happens for a reason. When I first started with Team in Training in 2002, you wrote a letter, you had to buy stamps and mail the letter and, and all that kind of stuff. And had I started my organization at that point, I would have had to have stuff written and printed. I would have had mailing lists. I would have had to do all these things. Now with social media, so what happens was I was like, well, I don't have this money, but why can't I fundraise money to get the money to become a 501c3? And my friends were great enough. So I don't even know what fundraiser I had, but I think I had a couple fundraisers, raised them to get the attorney. And so then it was easy, right? Because then they guided you and they said, you need to get a board of directors and here's what you need to do every year. And here's where you need to file. And they still, thank goodness, send me every year my documentation that I need to send in because I probably wouldn't remember. And so it wasn't that arduous of a process because I was able to do that. I know you can do it on your own, but I just did.
Probably wouldn't recommend it. Get somebody who knows what they're talking about. Because like you said, there's a lot of legality to that also.
Yeah.
To be in a proper 501c3.
Yes.
There's a lot of organizations that call themselves charity organizations, but they're not true nonprofits.
Correct.
And there is a big difference in that. If you donate to a Marie's organization, Sunbow Foundation, it's tax deductible.
Right.
So, whereas a lot of the charity organizations call themselves charity organizations because they're not a 501c3.
Right.
All right, we are at the bottom of the hour. We're going to jump in here real quick and say thank you to some of our sponsors. We start with our friend Phil Nocerino, who owns Frequency Are Us products. He's at 847-704-0355. www.frequencyarus.com. Natural Resonance Frequency Jewelry that acts as a natural pain reliever, improves balance, strength, and energy. Jewelry with a purpose, a natural pain reliever that works. Frequency RS products, 847-704-0355 or at www.frequencyrs.com. Also want to shout out to Stuckey's Family Restaurant. All-American cuisine made from scratch daily. They got some great food there, folks. I got to tell you, I've been there many times. For their fabulous breakfast buffet, including made-to-order omelets and the best biscuits and gravy around, visit them Sundays from 7:30 to 1 p.m. Stuckey's is easy to find at 4000 North Johnsburg Road in Johnsburg, Illinois, sharing the same parking lot with Angelo's Supermarket. Stuckey's Family Restaurant there at 815-331-8050 or at www.stuckeysbarandgrill.com.
Now, if I was Italian, his name would be Robbie Buffets. I love my buffets. I got to get over to the Stuckey's. So how does somebody find out about, or how does somebody get nominated, or how do you find out about people who are in need?
So right now we're small enough that it's mostly word of mouth. As we grow, we might have to have a formal nomination process and kind of get into that. It needs, the organization, the board of directors, approve a general concept of it. And it's also helpful that it's word of mouth because I know that the story is legitimate.
Yeah, you can easily verify it that way.
I can verify and vet the story so that I know it's appropriate for us. So that to date, it's just been word of mouth. We just hear about someone who's in need, and I don't have any like you said earlier, we don't just help people with cancer, although
I wanted to talk about
I've
that.
helped a lot.
It's not about people who are just sick. It's just about a need.
Yeah, it's just about a need. And so that need can be sort of anything, right? Like we've helped, people who's, a house burned down, whatever it might be. And so the main criteria that we have kind of right now is we do help people that no one else is helping. So, or they don't have that support network. So one of the things that's true when you have a need too, is that sometimes you have a need, but also your network isn't capable. They're willing, but not capable to help. And so if someone has a GoFundMe or something, and there's $20,000 in the GoFundMe, you're good. You've got people taking care of you. We're not going to necessarily contribute to that.
A few more thousand to that,
right? But we have. Here's a great Sunbow story. So it was a friend of mine. Several people in her neighborhood had cancer at the same time, or several people she knew had cancer, and she lived kind of on the good side of the tracks, right?
Yeah.
And so this is how she told me the story, was that there was a person in her neighborhood, which was a well-to-do sort of neighborhood. She had cancer, and within a day or two had thousands and thousands of dollars in her GoFundMe account.
Yeah.
A mile away, and I know this because I drove with her to give this person the check. A mile away, there was another family who the mom had cancer, but it was the other side of the tracks, and she had a GoFundMe, and after like 2 years, there was like $60 in it. Her network
didn't have the funds.
Didn't have the funds, right? So that's the person that we help. That particular person, they had she and her husband sold their wedding bands to buy a winter coat for their so we actually went in, we replaced their wedding bands, and then we gave them money to help with their bills, and it changed her in such a way where she was so relieved. I mean, she expressed that, but they were not putting their lights on. They were not, they were turning their phone
doing
on,
everything they could to save a dollar.
And so, so that's the person that we helped, and we replaced her wedding bands. And she actually ended up passing away about a year or so later. And
but how much joy he brought to them.
Yeah,
and
they
gesture.
couldn't afford a memorial service at all. So we actually also helped them do a luncheon so that the family could gather around and support her husband and her son. So that's an
simple
example.
Acts of kindness.
That's an example. Yeah, and life-changing for them.
I saw one of the stories on there. I was looking at your site, and one of the ladies, you got a new car or not a new car, but
just
you got another. I think that was recently.
This just happened.
That was exciting because she was doing something for somebody, right?
So this was such a cool story, and it went backwards like a million different ways, and this is kind of how it happens. So we helped a kid who was on his own story, and we helped him start a new life in California. His mom and grandmom had passed away. His mom's best friend did a fundraiser for us, a birthday fundraiser on Sunbow. Another person contributed to that and looked us up. She actually has a radio show in Indiana, and came and interviewed me. And at the end of our conversation, she said, she talked about dancing, and I'm like, I love dancing. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. So she's like, you need to come out with us sometime. Anyway, on that given day, 2 friends of mine texted me and said, we have a car to donate. Do you know anyone? I asked around. No, I don't have anyone. Go out that night with this person who I met because of these successive miracles, right? and Dora, who I didn't even know, I had not even met her, is going, I am so desperate for a car.
And that was another lady who just happened to be in the bathroom. Dora
was the lead singer who knew the radio. Yeah. And she's like, I'm so desperate for a car. And she knew this other person that was my new friend. I mean, it's just crazy. And so anyway, so she goes, I'm desperate for a car. It's so dangerous. I have to take the bus all the time. My kids want me to have a car, but I don't know how I'll ever afford a car. And we're in the bathroom. And I said, did you just say that you need a car? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And so I talked to Terry, who knew her, and she's like, oh my gosh, she's a Sunbow herself. She's so giving. She's so in need. So I texted my friends. I'm like, is the car still available? It was. I mean, it was just the craziest.
It all had to fall into place just like it did.
Goodness. And amazing. Like it was just so. Yeah, that was a great.
I saw the video where you opened her garage door and the car was sitting in her garage.
Yeah, it was exciting. That was an Oprah moment. I had to get the big bow and everything, and and again, another thing of. They were done with the use of that car and they got something new for them, but for her. Gosh. Yeah.
It was like getting something brand new.
Yeah. So
and they actually donated to not just buy the car, but to make sure the car was in good working condition.
Yeah. We found
and to help with insurance and everything to get it going and working right for her.
We found later in vetting her and, her story that she had some other needs too. So we helped her with that.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic organization.
Yeah.
Now, mostly it's run by volunteers at the moment, and we're hoping to help by having Marie here today to help promote Sunbow and just keep widening that circle of influence that she's brought to this world, and just think it's such a great thing to do for other people. And so it doesn't have to be a medical need; it could be anybody that is trying. We all love to help people that are trying to help themselves. And there's so many stories out there that qualify for that. So let's hopefully we'll get enough calls in and requests that Sunbow will just explode and have to keep getting bigger and bigger and helping more and more people.
So how can people in our audience contact you for maybe they can donate time or resources?
Yeah.
Or
so we're just starting to have, I'm just starting to do a volunteer database. We had a newspaper article and people have offered to volunteer. We don't often or always have physical volunteer opportunities just because a lot of times it is cash, but we actually have one coming up in this area shortly. So you can look at our page. We just identified a family this week whose apartment was completely burned in a fire. And they lost everything.
Where was that at that they live?
It's going to be in Gurney. I don't know exactly. I don't think they have their new apartment yet. So
it's less than... It's within an hour from us now. This is new
coming up. So if you watch our Facebook page, more details will be coming. But we're looking to replace, to furnish the apartment with donations. We did that once before for a homeless mom, and get all their household needs and some cash and stuff. So with that one, we can say that happens. We'll move that into the apartment. The way to I do have a web, www.sunbowfoundation.org. That is more of a placeholder at this point. It's not so much updated all the time. You can donate off of that page, sunbowfoundation.org. There's a link to donate, and that comes to us. But it
is tax deductible. Your donations.
It is tax deductible, and that's what what it takes to do this. And then our Facebook page is just facebook.com, or if you're on Facebook, and it's /Sunbow Foundation. But if you just go to Facebook and search Sunbow Foundation, you'll have our page.
It'll pop up.
And that page is on there, and you can donate through there as well. And you can message me that way. And then you can also email sunbowfoundation@yahoo.com. So it's all Sunbow everything. And those links are on those pages too, the email link and that kind of stuff.
How did you stumble on that word? That's just such a cool.
So the job I was at, so I was in this horrible job. Like I said, it was a dark place for me. I'm a physical therapist by trade, so I'm a helper. And it's a long story, but I was in a marketing job, and I was in a marketing firm. And that day, my job was to look starting with S.
No kidding.
My right hand to God. I had to look up words starting with S, and I found that word. But that's okay. Everything happens for a reason. Yeah. So the thing about my tagline for Sunbow Foundation, there's a quote that says, alone we can do, by Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And the thing that is the coolest thing about the Sunbow Foundation, well, there's a lot of cool things, but is that it's very tangible. It's very real. Like, you make a donation, that you helped that person get their apartment back. That they replaced their wedding rings. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but most of us don't have thousands of dollars to throw, some way, but we might have $5 or $10 or whatever it might be. And then that comes together.
Yep.
And when that money is the bank and I get a call, we get a call and we can say, yes, we can help you. And then it's all of us together. I mean, like that's the biggest thing that I can say. It's that all my Sunbows, we've done this. We've done this because without everyone's donations, it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, when everybody does a little, a lot gets done.
Exactly.
You had you said your parents were a big influence on the whole idea of doing that. You wanted to do something back because you realized how hard they had worked and devoted their life to giving you whatever they could, and you wanted to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to remember them, and anything that I do, like all of us, right? Anything that we do and accomplish, it comes from the people before us. And I don't have children. I have nieces. My father died when I was 20. My nieces never knew him. My mom, their grandma died when they were young. And so I want the world to know they were here and what they did, and everything I have, everything I do, it's because of what they gave.
I would put a short poem on your site that I just caught my eye, being a parent of 4 kids and some grandkids. And I just want to read it real quick. It's a short poem. It sums up the sacrifice that parents make sometimes and the influence they have. It's called I Am Your Child. It's wherever you go, you take me to. Whatever I know, I learn from you. Whatever I do, you taught me to do. Whatever I am, you taught me to be. I am your child. So we influence people all the time on our actions and our words. And I just thought that was a beautiful little poem.
It's a Barry Manilow song.
Yeah, just beautiful.
Shout out.
Words, and I understand them completely.
Yeah.
It's too for what my mother had to pick me up one day to take me to work because my car wouldn't start years ago, middle of winter. 7:30 in the morning. And I'm just apologizing the whole time. God, I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. He just turns around and looks at me and goes, son, if you didn't go out of your way to help somebody, who are you really helping? We all want to help when it makes us look good and feel good, but how about when we do it just because the need is there? And that's kind of what your organization does. It just looks at what's the need, which is amazing. And I love that it's not just about people who have health issues, because there's a lot of things that come at us in life that we try to overcome, and sometimes it's just hard to do on your own. And like you said, a lot of times it's people who are already giving of themselves, who don't have much to give any to begin with, that sometimes need that help and are the last person to ask for it sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's key. Most of the people that have helped, it's perfectly good to ask for help, but most of them haven't. Most of them are struggling, and somebody else is, representing for them. And I think that's a hard thing. And I think, again, for me personally, going through cancer again, like I was not a person to ask for help directly, but I got it. And I also felt like how huge all of that help was that people thought was small, and, and it carries you through. So, and the cool thing is, like, all of our stories are great, but
go ahead. I love hearing the stories.
So Joe's a kid who sacrificed his teenage years to care for his terminally ill mom who died of cancer. He actually even dropped out of high school.
I was going to school
He dropped out of high school to help her. And then she said, will you please take care of grandma? And he did. So at, 1920, his grandmother passed away too, and he was left with nothing. They lived in a trailer that had a mortgage. I mean, it's not like he could even sell it. He had a car his grandma gave him. It got totaled that week. Anyway, he had an opportunity to go to California with some friends and start a new life, but he had no way to get there. So you know where this is going. We financed, paid for his flight to California, financed him to get an apartment, all that kind of stuff. And I just talked to him about a week ago, and he's doing really well. It's a longer story than this, but he's really turning it around. And I mean, he's still a kid,
Yes, exactly.
And he moved to California. It's amazing. But he's like, and when he was struggling, I put a call out. A few months ago, he was struggling, and I put a call out and I said, hey, Sunbows, will you just send him a card and just tell him about a tough time in your life that you got through? Because he's struggling right now. He's 20 years old. He moved to California by himself. He has no family. And of course, my amazing Sunbow friends did that. And they sent him gifts and cards and inspiration and gift cards and whatnot. And he's like, I'm overwhelmed. But I talked to him about a month ago, and he's over that hump. And he said, I want you to tell my story because I can't financially help right now. someday I will.
But tell them your story.
But I want you to tell the story and how much it helped me and how much it saved my life. He goes, and he's volunteering at the American Cancer Society
out there
because he's like, that's how I can give back right now.
Yes.
And I told him, I said, that's the trickle. That's the trickle down that's going to. We helped him, and Sunbows, you all helped him, and now he's going to help someone else, and that's the trickle. So
sometimes our time is the most expensive thing we have to give, the most valuable
thing. For the rest
thing.
of my life, he's like, it changed me that I want to just help people. And like, gosh, like if nothing else happens, right? Like that.
That's the ones that keep you humble, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you hear stories like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Just amazing. You doing any more marathons? We were just talking about that a little bit before. And you were talking about how it's hard to get that umph back up again sometimes.
Yeah. So I was still coaching the team, but because of my own health issues, it really wasn't possible for me to run. I did do one. So I shared that when I was diagnosed that I was at a triathlon with Team in Training, and in that bravado that you got, that bravado moment when you, I was there and I said, I will be back next year to do this triathlon a year later. And I was with like over 30 of my closest Team in Training friends. Everybody went down to St. Anthony's and I did that triathlon. And that
was after diagnosis, and
it was 1 year to the day
after treatment then.
Yeah. 1 year to the day of diagnosis. So only about 4 months after I finished treatment. But then subsequently after that, so that was my big, stick it to you, cancer.
That's right.
But then after that is when I started kind of having the health problems and stuff. And I really couldn't physically do much. I was in pain. I had, issues. And so now I'm feeling better. As about a year and a half, I'm feeling much better and I can physically do it. But mentally, and what I was saying was that, if you do endurance sports or anything like that, part of the zoo of it is that you push yourself through this discomfort. You're tired, you're sore, you have an injury, you're hot, you're cold, whatever it might be, and you push yourself through it. And that's part of the experience and part of the pride. After going through cancer treatment, I'm like, I can't mentally get myself to do that now. Like, so when I see people like getting up on a Saturday morning when it's pouring rain and freezing, I'm like, why would anyone do that? Even though I did it for years and years and years, but I just, for at least right now, I still can't get rid of all my triathlon and running and whatever stuff. But for right now, I'm good to just be comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good to be physically comfortable.
You're being drawn to do other things besides that experiences. It's, I know just from doing it myself, it was an amazing experience that
I'd recommend it to
don't know if I at least
coaching.
try to do a half just to see if you can do that. Team in Training is a great organization. It's run through, like we said, Leukemia Lymphoma Society. It's mostly about people with blood cancers, obviously. But other people join it who have had other cancers just to raise money.
Or not have cancer, just
or not. Most of the runners aren't.
I had no
survivors.
affiliation at all when I joined Team in Training. I didn't really have a close family history. I just wanted to help, and I got inspired by the mission and inspired by endurance events because it's awesome, and it's been like the greatest thing in my life for all those years, for sure.
I'm telling you, somebody who would avoid gym classes if they could help in high school and do that. All it taught me mostly was nothing stops us but ourselves and death. If you really want to do something, I could get up at 5 a.m. and go out and train for that marathon, but come Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, it's too early to go to church. We do what we want to do when we want to do it. If we want to bad enough,
across the finish line, I mean, for sure.
Believe me, if they could get me across that finish line, I finished it at about 265 pounds. It took me 7 hours to walk that marathon. But the feeling of knowing that I did something like that, and when I share that with people, I don't share it to say, oh, look what I did, but to say, look what's possible. If somebody who had never done anything like that, had gone through the treatments, was buried in a hole for 4 years trying to climb out of that damage that it had done, and to turn around from not being able to walk around my circle driveway at one point after surgery to finishing a marathon, anything is possible if you want to bad enough.
Yep.
That's what it really taught me.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I don't think I could go out there and do it marathon.
Never,
I'd be like pulling out. Nah, forget it.
Right now,
That's why I have a car.
If I did, I'd want Tom right there with a car beside me in case I've had enough, Tom. It's amazing how once you do something like that, and once you get it in your mind that, well, maybe this is possible, and then okay, let's go do it again next week.
Oh, it's addicting. I mean, I did.
There's people that do this, run a full marathon every month.
Yeah, well,
which is crazy to me.
I did a half a month every month 1 year, and I did then I went into triathlon and century cycling rides, and I did an Ironman triathlon. So it feeds on each other.
All of this is possible, no matter where you think you're at. The possibility is there.
And I had not, when I started, I had never run.
Done anything like that?
Nothing.
It's just amazing. And the camaraderie that you develop with the people that are there.
They're my best friends.
The coaches are
family.
amazing. Most of the coaches are people who have either did it themselves. Most of them ran it themselves or walked it or whatever they did.
Yeah, they usually
climbed, whatever they were. Yeah. And they become coaches and help other people. And there's all kinds of, if you want to volunteer, like we were talking about volunteerism. Leukemia Lymphoma Society is a great organization to join. They're always needing help at these walks and runs, volunteers to just, if nothing else, to be at a water station somewhere along that trail, that line. So there's plenty of things to do if you want to be a volunteer and help other people doing things like that. You don't have to run or walk the marathon yourself. You just be there helping the rest of them get through it.
Yeah, for sure.
It beat me up pretty good. It took me probably 3 to 6 months to recover after I did that full one. Yeah. I mean, I loved it for the first couple of months. I could still eat whatever I wanted. And I didn't gain any weight. Right. After 2 months, your body starts slowing down a little bit. When you're doing that, it kind of kicks your body into a high burn, doesn't it? And, I can remember we would go out after practice on Saturday mornings to a restaurant, Rose Garden over in down by Schaumburg. We used to go there after we train at Bussy Woods, and here would be these 5 foot tall women that are just scarfing down omelets and pancakes and just eating like a horse, man.
Whatever you eat after a marathon or a long training, it's just like the best food in the whole world.
And I would go, I'm going to enjoy this to eat.
Yeah.
And but like I said, after a couple of months, that body kind of slows down again, and it's like, oops, got to stop. Either got to keep walking or quit eating, one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, here we are at the end of our hour, which we knew this was coming. We want to thank Marie for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you having you on our show.
Yes.
What a great story. What great stuff. And
inspirational.
The things that you guys are doing for people that really need it. My hat's off to you.
Thank you.
And we've put some things up for people to find you, that they can help in helping in any way that they can.
And if you know anybody in need, go ahead and please get in touch with Sunbow Foundation.
And at that point, we are out of time, folks. We want to thank everybody for joining us again, and we will see you again. The reason is because we're not done yet.
Thanks,
folks. See you next time.